First, 3 simple words. Come with me. 3 simple words that would change 3 lives forever on the coldest October night when a single father found a young paralyzed woman in a wheelchair sleeping on bare concrete beside an empty bus stop. She had been there since yesterday. He couldn't leave her there for another freezing night, but what happened when he brought her home would prove that sometimes the most broken people build the strongest families. Miss, are you okay? The words cut through the October wind as Mark Lawson froze outside the 24-hour pharmacy. His pickup truck was still idling, medicine for his sick daughter clutched in his hand. But it wasn't the cold that stopped him. It was the shape huddled against the bus stop across the street. Not on the bench, but down on the freezing concrete beside it, a young woman in a wheelchair that soldiered in on herself against the night. She lifted her head slowly. Even in the dim streetlight, Mark could see she couldn't be more than 25. Her blonde hair was tangled, her face thin and hollow, but her eyes held such tiredness that his chest grew heavy. "I'm fine," she said hoarsely. "It's just waiting." Mark glanced at his watch. Almost midnight. The buses had stopped running hours ago. "It's close to 12, he said quietly. She tried to adjust her position and winced in pain. "I know," she whispered. "I just don't have anywhere else to go right now." Those words hung between them. Mark's hand went automatically to his jacket pocket, where Lily's fever medicine was starting to warm. His 7-year-old daughter was at home next door with Mrs. Ramirez burning up with fever, waiting for him to come back. He should leave. Any reasonable person would. "How long have you been here?" he asked. Since yesterday," she answered honestly, then quickly added, "Oh, but I'm okay, I can manage." Really? Since yesterday? The 2 words hit Mark like a physical blow. This young woman had been outside for more than 24 hours, in a wheelchair, in October, on bare concrete, and still she was trying to convince him she was fine. Without thinking, he crouched down so he was closer to her level, his knees protesting against the cold pavement. "What's your name?" he asked. "Grace," she said after a pause. "Grace Miller? I'm Mark Lawson." He stood back up, running a hand through his hair, an old nervous habit. The motion jostled his pocket and his wallet slipped out, a photo sliding free and fluttering to the ground. Grace reached for it before he could, surprisingly quick despite her exhaustion. She picked it up and stared at it for a moment. Mark and a little girl with curls, both grinning at the camera, matching father-daughter dance sashes across their clothes. "You have a daughter?" she asked, something soft shifting in her expression. "Yeah, Lily," Mark said. "She's 7. "Yeah, Lily," Mark said. "Thinks she knows everything about everything." His voice automatically softened, the way it always did when he talked about her. "She lost her mom 3 years ago. It's just the 2 of us now." The admission slipped out before he could stop it. He hadn't planned to say that. But standing here in the dark with a stranger the world had walked past for 2 days, the truth came out on its own. Grace handed the photo back gently. "She's beautiful," she said. "She has your smile. She has her mother's everything else," Mark murmured, tucking the picture away. And then, before he could overthink it, before logic could override the pull in his chest, he heard himself say, "Come with me." Grace blinked, confusion crossing her face. "What? Come with me," Mark repeated, firmer now. "It's going to drop below freezing tonight. You can't stay here." "I can't pay you," she stammered. "I don't want charity." "I'm not offering charity," Mark said, his tone calm but steady. "I'm offering a warm place for the night. My daughter's sick. I need to get home with her medicine." I can't go knowing you're going to spend another night on this concrete. I can't do it. You don't even know me," she said quietly. "I could be dangerous. Dangerous people don't worry about whether they're dangerous," Mark said simply. "They don't warn you." Grace stared at him for a long time, searching his face. Maybe for sincerity, maybe for threat, maybe just for a reason why a stranger had stopped for someone the world had clearly decided not to see. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why do you care?" What do you care?" Mark thought about giving her an easy answer, about being a good citizen, about basic human decency. But looking at this young woman, invisible to everyone else for 2 days, he chose the real answer. 3 years ago," he said quietly, "right after my wife Amanda died, I was standing in a parking lot just like this one, holding Lily, completely wrecked. I had no idea how I was going to get through the night, let alone raise a little girl alone. Some old man stopped, saw me crying, and said 5 words that saved me. You don't have to rush. He stayed with me for an hour, just talking, until I could breathe again. I never even got his name. Mark held out his hand. So tonight, I'm asking you to let me be that person for you. He said. But just for tonight. Tomorrow, if you want to go back to handling everything on your own, that's your choice. But tonight, come with me. The October wind whipped through the empty bus stop, rattling the metal sign. Somewhere far away, a siren wailed. The neon pharmacy sign flickered. And in that moment, Grace Miller made a decision that would change everything. She took his hand. Getting Grace into the truck was a process. She was determined to do as much as possible herself, transferring from the wheelchair to the passenger seat with practiced movements, despite how exhausted she clearly was. Mark folded the wheelchair. It was heavier than he'd expected, and secured it in the back with bungee cords he always kept there, just in case. It's not far, he said as he climbed into the driver's seat. About 15 minutes. Grace nodded, fingers knotted together in her lap. Now that she'd agreed, the weight of trust sat heavily on her shoulders. Going home with a stranger in the middle of the night, Mark understood how much courage that took. Tell me about Lily, Grace said suddenly. What's wrong with her? A fever and cough, Mark said, easing onto the main road. Started yesterday morning, got worse tonight. She's tough, though, tougher than me most days. She kept insisting she was fine because she didn't want to miss school tomorrow. They're doing volcano projects. Volcanoes. A small, real smile flickered across Grace's face. He loved those projects, she said. I made one with my grandma when I was a kid. Baking soda and vinegar, red food coloring, dish soap. The kitchen was a disaster. It was the first personal thing she had shared. Mark tucked it away in his mind. Raised by her grandmother. No mention of parents. Lily's volcano is supposed to erupt tomorrow, Mark said. She's been working on it for weeks. Paper, mache, painted to look like Mount St. Helens. She even researched the real eruption patterns. He glanced at Grace. She gets the perfectionism from her mom Amanda. And what does she get from you? Grace asked lightly. The stubborn streak, Mark said, and the inability to leave well enough alone. For the first time, he earned a faint little laugh from her. They drove in silence for a few minutes. The heater finally kicked in properly, and he watched the tension slowly drain from her shoulders as warmth filled the cab. Can I ask something? Mark began, then stopped himself. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. You want to ask about the wheelchair, Grace said, not unkindly. That's the question, right? I want to know if you're okay, Mark replied gently. The chair is just part of the story. Grace stayed quiet long enough that he assumed she wouldn't answer. Then, watching the streetlight streak across the windshield, she started to speak. 2 years ago, she said, I was working as an electrician's apprentice. I was good at it too. We were on a construction site when the scaffolding collapsed. 3 stories up. She swallowed. The company said I broke safety protocol. I didn't, but they had better lawyers. I lost workers' comp. Lost my job. Lost everything while I was recovering. That's not right, Mark said, anger sharpening his voice. A lot of things aren't right, Grace answered quietly. You learn to adapt, or you don't make it. He turned into his neighborhood, small houses, patchy yards, porch lights casting warm yellow circles into the dark. Mrs. Ramirez's living room light was still on. That's my neighbor, Mark. Please stop by tomorrow to check on us. Heads up, she will try to feed you. Resistance is futile. Are you sure about this? Grace asked as they pulled into his driveway. I mean, it might be another shelter with space, or... I'm sure, Mark said, firm now. He went around to get the wheelchair, but Grace was already halfway through transferring herself out of the truck. Even exhausted, she did everything she could on her own. The house itself was nothing special. A 3-bedroom ranch, gutters that needed replacing, a front step that groaned when you stepped on it. But inside it was warm, it was safe, and right now that was everything. Let me check on Lily first, Mark said, unlocking the front door. Or make yourself at home. Living room's right there, kitchen's through that doorway, bathrooms down the hall. He hesitated. Is it accessible enough? I mean, can you... I'll manage, Grace said. I'm good at managing. Go check on your daughter. Lily's room glowed quietly under the soft light of her butterfly nightlight. Her breathing was still stuffy, but it was more even than before. Mark rested a hand on her forehead, definitely cooler than earlier. The first dose of medicine must have helped. He gave her the new dose anyway, smoothing her hair back. I'm right here, still closed. I'm right here, kiddo. Did you get my medicine? I did, Mark said. And something else. We have a visitor tonight. Someone who needs our help. That okay? I like the bird we helped. With a hurt wing? She mumbled. A kind of like that? He said softly. Okay. Can I meet them tomorrow? For if you're feeling better. Now sleep. She was already drifting off again, clutching her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy. When Mark came back to the living room, he found Grace hadn't moved far from the doorway, as if she was afraid to go in too deep. I don't want to intrude, she said. You're not, Mark told her. Are you hungry? I've got soup, chicken noodle. Lily's favorite when she's sick. Right then her stomach answered for her with a loud growl. Her cheeks flushed. Maybe a little, she admitted. Have you ever watched someone try not to cry over a bowl of soup? Mark watched as Grace took the first spoonful of reheated chicken noodle. Her eyes slid shut like it was something from a 5-star restaurant, not canned soup with a handful of extra vegetables thrown in. When did you last eat? He asked quietly. Yesterday morning, she replied. The shelter had breakfast before my time was up. The 30-day limit? Mark asked. She looked surprised. You know about that? My company does volunteer work sometimes, he said. Haven Shelter, right? They're good people, just drowning. They really did try, Grace said softly. They gave me info on other places, but they're full, or they're not wheelchair accessible, or there's a wait list a mile long, she shrugged. It doesn't matter. I've slept in worse places. It does matter, Mark said more sharply than he meant to. You matter. The words seemed to crack something open in her. She set the spoon down, her hands trembling slightly. You don't understand, she said. Our people don't just help for nothing anymore. There's always a catch. Always something they want. So what do you want, Mark? I need to know before I get comfortable, before I let myself believe this is real. I want you to be safe tonight, he answered. I want you to be warm. I want you to eat until you're full and sleep without worrying you're going to freeze or be hurt. That's it, that's all. Nobody does that for free, she whispered. My wife did, Mark said, his voice softening. If Amanda was still here, you'd have been inside this house with a blanket and a mug of hot chocolate before I even put the truck in park. She believed in helping first, asking questions later. She'd say this is just the right thing. And you? Grace asked. What do you believe? He actually thought about it, maybe for the first time in years. I believe we're all just trying to get through, he said finally. Land on some really dark nights, we need someone to remind us that morning's coming. Those nights, if someone reaches out a hand, it might be the only reason we don't fall apart. They sat quietly while Grace finished her soup. Then another bowl, then a sandwich Mark insisted on making. As she ate, she talked more. Little things at first. Honor classes, the vocational program that got her the apprenticeship, the savings she'd had for college before the accident took everything. Was going to be an electrical engineer, she said. Work during the day, classes at night. I was good with circuits, understanding how power moves, how to connect things so they work. You still are, Mark said. The accident didn't change your brain. No, she said bitterly. But try explaining that to anyone else. They see the chair first. Some of them never see past it. It was close to 2 a.m. when Mark finally showed her the spare room. It was cluttered with boxes and Lily's old toys, but the bed was made and the heat worked. This is too much, Grace said quietly. It's a bed and a roof, Mark replied. That's not too much, that's basic. He paused at the door. A bathroom's across the hall. Clean towels in the cabinet. If you need anything. Mark? Grace interrupted. Yeah? Oh, why did you really stop tonight? She asked. I want the truth. I want the truth. He turned back to face her. You really want it, he said. She nodded. When I saw you there, he said slowly, I saw every night I felt invisible after Amanda died. Nights I sat in Lily's room wondering how the hell I was going to make it to morning. I saw someone nobody else was seeing, and I just couldn't drive away. Grace nodded, something like understanding passing between them. Thank you, she whispered. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow will figure itself out somehow. Tomorrow came faster than either of them expected. At 6 a.m, Mark woke up to the sound of voices. Lily's high, excited chatter, and another voice, calm, warm, patient. He found them in the kitchen, Lily, still in her pajamas, wild bedhead sticking up everywhere, sat at the table. Grace was behind her, carefully braiding her hair. "A dad," Lily announced. "A Miss Grace knows how to do a real fishtail braid." "I can see that," Mark said, trying to absorb what he was seeing. His daughter, who usually took weeks to warm up to anyone, talking a mile a minute to Grace like they'd known each other forever. As she uses a wheelchair, Lily had apparently already been talking. Like Professor X, she told me about her accident, and I told her about Mom and Mr. Hoppy, and she can fix electrical stuff. "Lily, let Miss Grace breathe," Mark said, starting the coffee. "Don't." "It's fine," Grace said, tying off the braid with one of Lily's purple hair ties. "She was just telling me about her volcano project. Sounds like you've got a future scientist here." "It was supposed to erupt today," Lily said sadly, then coughed hard. "You're definitely staying home," Mark said. "I'll email your teacher on my volcano," she murmured. "It'll wait," Grace said gently. "Real scientists don't rush their experiments." That first day set a pattern none of them had planned for. Mark called into work and used a sick day. On my real side, the three of them spent the day in this strange little bubble of almost normal. Grace helped Lily improve her volcano, adding details, checking the mixture ratios, while Mark did laundry, sorted mail, tackled Bill. One word kept whispering at the edge of his mind, a word he was a little afraid to say out loud. "Normal. She's really smart, Dad," Lily whispered loudly when Grace went to the bathroom. "And she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby." "I noticed," Mark said, watching the way his daughter's whole face lit up, a light he hadn't seen in months. That evening, while Lily napped on the couch, Grace insisted on checking the flickering electrical outlet in the kitchen. "You don't have to," Mark started. "I want to," Grace said. "It's dangerous, especially with a kid in the house." She examined the outlet, calm and efficient. "You have tools?" 20 minutes later, she'd found the loose wire and fixed it. "You saved us," Mark said, genuinely impressed. "You saved me first," Grace replied simply. 3 days passed, then a week. Mark went back to work. Grace stayed. She helped with She slowly untangled the chaos the house had collected since Amanda's death. She kept insisting it was temporary. "Just until I figure out my next move. The shelter might have a bed next week," she mentioned around day 10. "Right," Mark said. "Or there's that program downtown." "Or Lily would miss you," he blurted, then cleared his throat. "If you left all at once. She's gotten attached." "Just Lily?" Grace asked quietly. The question hung unspoken between them. By week 2, a rhythm had taken shape. Grace got Lily ready for school while Mark made breakfast. They all sat down and ate together like a family, though nobody used the word. Mark dropped Lily off on his way to work. Grace spent the day applying for jobs, making calls, fighting the wall that rose up whenever she mentioned the wheelchair. "Another rejection," she said one afternoon when Mark came home early. "They say they're inclusive. Until they hear wheelchair, their loss," Mark said. "You fix things in this house I'd been ignoring for years." "House repairs don't pay bills," Grace pointed out. "They do if you're an electrician," Mark countered. "Or an electrical engineer." "I never finished my degree," she said. "Then finish it." "Oh, with what money?" she said. "And how? Online programs cost as much as regular ones." That night, after Lily was asleep, Mark found Grace sitting in the living room, staring at nothing. "Talk to me," he said, taking a seat across from her. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared I'm getting comfortable here. That Lily's getting attached. That you're what?" he gently prompted. "That I'm starting to feel like I belong somewhere again," she said. "And that's dangerous, because this isn't mine. This isn't permanent. Kindness has an expiration date. I'm not going to be somebody's charity case, the poor paralyzed girl they felt sorry for." "Is that really what you think you are to us?" Mark asked quietly. "A charity project, isn't it?" she shot back. "No," Mark said firmly. "You are the person who makes Lily laugh at breakfast. You're the one who fixed the death trap outlet and the leaky faucet and the squeaky front step. You're the one who helps with homework, watches movies with us, makes this house feel less empty. You're Grace. Just Grace. The chair is part of you, but it's not all of you. Not to us." The moment stretched between them, delicate and important. Then a small voice from the hallway cut through it. "Dad, Miss Grace, I had a bad dream." Grace moved first, instinctively. "Come here, sweetheart," she said. Lily climbed onto the couch between them, curling into Grace's side. "I dreamed you left," Lily whispered to her. "I like Mom did." "Oh, honey," Grace said, her voice thick. "I'm right here." "I promise you won't go," Lily whispered. Grace looked over Lily's head at Mark. He saw the war in her eyes, the desperate desire to make this child feel safe, fighting with the fear of promising something she might not be able to keep. "I promise I won't leave without saying goodbye," Grace said finally. "And I promise that as long as I'm here, you'll be safe and loved." "Okay," Lily mumbled, already sliding back to sleep. Have you ever watched someone realize they're home? Mark watched it happen to Grace right then, holding Lily, being needed, being wanted, being part of a family. Week 3 brought the phone call that changed everything. Mark came home to find Grace crying at the kitchen table, her phone in front of her. "What happened?" he asked immediately, terrified that this was the moment she'd say she was leaving. "The law firm called," she managed between tears. "For?" "About my accident. A witness came forward. Someone was recording video at the construction site. It shows everything, that I've followed every safety protocol, that the company was negligent. They want to reopen my case. They think I could get full compensation, medical bills, back pay, even money for school." That's incredible, Grace," Mark said, genuinely happy. "This could change everything." "I could," she said softly. Then she looked straight at him like she'd read the fear he didn't say out loud. She reached for his hand. "This doesn't mean I'm leaving," she said quickly. "Not right away. Legal stuff takes months, and even when it's done," her voice gentled. "Mark, you and Lily saved my life. Literally. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night. Maybe I would have survived. I usually did. But surviving isn't the same as living. You reminded me what living feels like." The legal process moved slowly, as these things do. But hope is a powerful thing. Grace attacked the process with the same determination she brought to everything. Mark helped where he could, driving her to meetings, watching Lily during calls, just being there when the weight of it all got heavy. Life carried on around the paperwork. Lily's volcano finally erupted at school to loud applause. Grace taught her to wire a simple circuit for her next science project. Mark learned how to cook something besides soup and sandwiches, with Grace coaching from her chair, laughing when he burned the first attempt. "How did Amanda put up with your cooking?" she teased. "She did all the cooking. I washed all the dishes. It was a solid system," Mark said. "Well, now you do both," Grace said, smiling. "Worth it," Mark replied, and he meant it. Next door, Mrs. Ramirez had plenty of opinions, as always. "It took you long enough to get some help with that little girl," she told Mark over the fence. "That child needed a woman around." "You've been giving her plenty of woman energy," Mark said. "Not the same, and you know it," she retorted. "That Grace is good people. There's steel in her spine, and not just the surgical kind." 4 months in, Grace started online classes in electrical engineering. She studied at the kitchen table while Lily did homework beside her, both of them focused and determined. "Or a good influence on her," Mark said one evening, watching them. "She makes me want to be better, to prove to her that setbacks don't mean you quit." "Miss Grace," Lily chimed in from her math worksheet, "when I grow up, can I be an engineer like you?" "You can be anything you want," Grace said. "Then I want to be like you and Dad," Lily said. "With someone who helps people." Mark saw Grace blink away tears. 6 months passed. Seasons changed. October's sharp cold gave way to April's gentle warmth. The legal settlement moved forward. It was going to be enough for Grace to have real options. Her own place, her education, a fresh start. "We need to talk," she said one evening, after Lily was asleep. Mark's heart sank. "You're leaving," he said. "The opposite," Grace said. "I want to stay, but I need to know if that's what you really want too. Not just letting me stay because you're kind, or because it's convenient." Grace, let me finish," she said, taking a breath. "I love Lily like she's my own. I love this house, this life we've built here, and she swallowed. "And I love this family," she said softly. "But if for you this is just convenient, if I'm just a really good babysitter who helps with the bills, I need to know now." "You are not the babysitter," Mark said quietly. "You haven't been for a long time." "Then what am I?" she whispered. Mark could have given a dozen careful explanations. Instead, he gave one simple truth. "You're the person I look for the second I walk through the door," he said. You're the one I want to tell my day to. You're the one Lily draws with us in her family portraits at school. You're the person I'm falling in love with, have been for a while." The kitchen went still. The only sound was the fridge humming. Outside, Mrs. Ramirez's wind chimes sang in the spring breeze. "I can't have children," Grace blurted. "The accident caused damage. If you want more kids, I want you," Mark cut in. "And I want the family we already have. I don't need some imaginary future kid to make this real. I have a daughter. And now I have you if you want this too. I'm in a wheelchair," she said with a shaky laugh. "I snore sometimes. I can't cook. And I leave the toilet seat up half the time," Mark said. "We all have our issues. Mark, be serious," she said, though she was smiling through tears. "I am serious," he said. "Your chair doesn't change how I feel about you. It's part of your story. And I love all of you." The hard parts, the soft parts, the scared parts. Grace rolled closer, taking his hands. "I love you too," she said, "or both of you. But love isn't always enough." "No," Mark said. "A love alone isn't. But love and choice together, that's enough. And I choose you, Grace. I choose this family. On the easy days and on the hard ones. 18 months after that cold October night, the settlement finally came through. It was more than either of them had expected. Enough for Grace to have her own fully accessible apartment, tuition covered, a clean slate if she wanted it. They told Lily over dinner, explaining that now Grace had the money to get her own place. Lily's fork slipped from her hand and clattered onto her plate. "You're leaving," she choked. Lily," Grace began. "You promised," Lily cried, eyes filling with tears. "You promised you wouldn't leave without saying goodbye, and you promised to keep me safe and loved. You can't do that if you're gone." "I don't have to leave," Grace said quickly. "I have choices now." "Won't choose us," Lily said, crying openly. "We chose you. Dad chose you that night at the bus stop. I chose you when you did my hair. We keep choosing you every day. Why won't you choose us back?" Mark watched Grace's face crumble. "Oh, honey," Grace whispered, wiping at her eyes. "I do choose you, every single day. I'm just scared. Scared I'm too much, or not enough. Scared I'm taking advantage of your dad's kindness." "My dad's not just kind," Lily said fiercely. "He loves you. I heard him telling Mrs. R yesterday." Mark went red. "Lily, what?" "It's true," Lily insisted, "and Miss Grace loves us. So why is everyone making this so complicated? Love is simple. If you love someone, you stay." That night, after Lily cried herself to sleep on the couch between them, Mark and Grace sat together in the darkened living room. "Well, she's not wrong," Mark said quietly. "No," Grace agreed. "She sees things pretty clearly." "So what do you want to do?" he asked. Grace was quiet for a long time. "I want to use the settlement to modify this house," she said finally. "Ramps, wider doorways, accessible bathroom. I want this to be home fully for all of us. I want to finish school. I want to contribute, to pay my share. And I want—" She hesitated, vulnerable in a way he'd rarely seen. "I want to marry you someday," she said. "When you're ready, if you ever are." Mark's breath caught. "Oh, Grace, oh no, it sounds fast," she said quickly. "It's been months, not years. But when you know, you know. And I know I want this. You, Lily, this family. For good." 2 years after that October night, their backyard twinkled with white lights. Paper flowers Lily had made herself swung gently in the evening breeze. Mrs. Ramirez had invited half the neighborhood, calling it Event of the Decade. Mark stood under a makeshift arch covered in ivy, watching as Grace came down the aisle in her wheelchair, wearing a simple white dress and the brightest smile he'd ever seen. In his vows, Mark said, 2 years ago, I thought I was rescuing you, but the truth is you rescued us. Lily and I were surviving, but we weren't really living. You taught us that broken doesn't mean worthless, different doesn't mean less. And sometimes the best families are the ones that find each other in the most unexpected places." Grace's vows were, to Mark, who saw me when I felt invisible, who offered help with no strings and love with no limits, to Lily, who didn't have to share her dad with me, but did, who taught me that family isn't about blood or about being perfect. It's about showing up, staying, choosing each other every single day. I choose you, both of you. Today and always, when it came time for the kiss, Lily wedged herself between them, throwing her arms around both and declaring, "Oh, finally, now can we have cake?" The reception was simple in the backyard. Potluck dishes from neighbors, music from Mark's old speaker, Lily teaching everyone the electric slide with moves she'd modified so Grace could dance in her chair. Any regret? Mark asked later, as they watched Lily drag Mrs. Ramirez onto the dance floor. Just one, Grace said. Oh, what's that? Mark asked. I wish I'd said yes sooner that first night, she said. Or when you said come with me, it might have saved us all some time. Oh no, Mark said thoughtfully. We needed the time to choose each other, again and again, to build this the right way. The right way, Grace repeated, smiling. From a bus stop to this best detour I ever took. Today, 5 years after that October night, Grace runs her own electrical consulting firm, specializing in accessible design. Her business card reads, Grace Lawson, CEO. Every time she looks at it, she can't help but smile. Mark still works at the plant, but he doesn't take double shifts anymore. He coaches Lily's soccer team and is learning to bake. Badly, with enthusiasm. Lily, now 12, is the star of her science class. Recently, she won the district science fair with a project on adaptive technologies that she designed with Grace's help. Last month, she had to write an essay on the topic. My hero. She stood at the front of her classroom and read, My hero isn't someone famous. Actually, I have two heroes. My dad, Mark Lawson, who stops to help strangers even when he's tired or scared. He taught me that kindness isn't just about being nice. It's about taking action when someone needs help. And my mom, Grace Lawson, who proves every day that wheelchairs don't stop someone from standing tall. She taught me that family isn't about blood or about being perfect. It's about choosing each other, especially when it's hard. 5 years ago, my dad made a choice at a bus stop. He chose to see someone who needed help. He chose to say, come with me. That choice gave me my mom. Some people think heroes wear capes or have superpowers, but real heroes drive pickup trucks, fix electrical problems, and make terrible pancakes on Sundays. Real heroes say come with me to strangers, and mean it. Real heroes choose love over fear, every single day. She got an A+. But what mattered even more was that she asked to read the same essay at Grace's company's 5-year anniversary party. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Not Grace's, not Mark's. That night, as they tucked Lily into bed, yes, she still liked being tucked in sometimes, she asked, do you think Mom knows? Knows what, sweetheart? Mark asked. My first mom. Amanda, Lily said. Do you think she knows about our family now? That we're okay? That we're happy? That we're happy? Grace and Mark exchanged a long look. I think love doesn't disappear just because someone dies, Grace said softly. I think your first mom's love is part of what brought us all together. Her love for you and your dad made you both into the kind of people who could open your hearts to someone new. That's a bumpy city. So yes, she'll always be part of this family. And you'll always be part of ours, Mark added. And no matter where you go or how old you get, I'm not going anywhere. Lily said confidently, when I'm older, I'll just build a bigger house so we can all live together. After she'd fallen asleep, Mark and Grace sat out on the porch, staring up at the stars, the same sky that had hung over that bus stop 5 years ago. Ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stopped? Grace asked quietly. I try not to, Mark admitted. It hurts. You would have survived somehow. You always did. But surviving isn't living, Grace finished for him. You didn't just save my life that night, Mark. You gave me a life worth living. You gave us the same thing, Mark replied. Before you, Lily and I were just going through the motions. You brought light back into this house. We saved each other, Grace said simply. The best rescues work that way, Mark agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, October air cool around them. Their month, their beginning. Mark, Grace said softly. Yeah? Thank you for stopping. For seeing me, for saying come with me, and for staying. Grace? Thank you for saying yes, he replied. For trusting me, for choosing us. A car drove by, its headlights briefly washing over them. Two people who had found each other in the dark and chosen to walk into the light together. Across town, somewhere, maybe someone else was sitting at a bus stop. Maybe someone else was driving by, wrestling with the question of whether to stop. Maybe someone else was one small act of kindness away from a completely different life. That's the thing about kindness. It multiplies. Lily has already started volunteering at the shelter on weekends, dragging her friends along. She organized a wheelchair basketball game at school to raise awareness. She stepped in when kids throw around words like a crippled or a broken, And she stood there, 12 years old and utterly sure, saying, everyone's dealing with something. Some people's struggles just show more on the outside. Grace now employs 6 people, 2 of whom also use wheelchairs. She's created a scholarship fund for engineering students with disabilities. She speaks at schools about resilience, adaptation, and what it really means not to give up. But mostly, she just lives, fully, joyfully. She lives in the house with the ramps and wide doors and a kitchen island at the perfect height for her chair. She lives with the man who doesn't see her as broken, but as whole. She lives with the daughter who calls her a ma, and means it with every bit of her heart. She knows the worst thing that ever happened to her, the accident, didn't magically come with some deeper lesson. Pain doesn't have built-in meaning, but people can give meaning to pain through their choices. Mark chose to stop. Grace chose to trust. Lily chose to love. Together, they chose to build something beautiful out of the broken pieces they'd been given. It all started with 3 words on a cold October night. Come with me. 3 words that meant, you're not alone. You matter. I see you. 3 words that became a bridge. From despair to hope, from loneliness to family, from merely surviving to truly living.